All right, guys. Welcome back to Indy Sooner. It's your boy JP. Um, man, we got two special guests with us today. One that's already been on the show. You guys know him. He's Byron Lusby, a former NFL scout for 20 years with the Colts, and I think he's again trying to get back in there as well. Guy that's basically like an uncle to me, and that has just a ton of knowledge of the game of football in general, and he'll be able to add a lot of insight. And then we also have my man Ty up in the right corner from Around the Table Sports. Got a big YouTube channel following. Specifically, talks about college football and is very good about being partial about almost every team he covers. Even though he's an Alabama fan, he doesn't become too homerish, and so he's going to add a lot to the thing as well. So, hey guys, I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for being on the show today.
Always a pleasure.
Absolute honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So we'll get right into it. And anybody who's viewing, please ask any questions or post anything in the comment section below, and I'll definitely put you guys up here. We'll try to just get it rolling. So we'll just talk about kind of week one in NFL. I'd like to start out with the Thursday night game, the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. Byron, are you a Cowboys fan? I don't remember. I didn't
Never,
think you
never
were.
have been. My uncle that played at OU actually played for the Giants. So from like 74 to 78 ish. And the game that we would go to would be in Dallas. The Giants weren't very good then.
Mhm.
It's usually 130 degrees. We were walking to that stadium, it was hot, and then they get their butts beat. So I've never been a fan of the Cowboys. Never.
Yeah,
So
I'm a
living here
Vikings
is painful.
so I'm a Vikings fan in Texas, man. So I get you. I definitely get you. And it's not like we've been a beacon of just success. We've been a little bit of a beacon of pain here every recent. But
Right,
hey, I
right.
mean, there's worse franchises out there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So would you guys think of the Cowboys' performance? Maybe more specifically, Dak Prescott. I know that I've not been sold on Dak. I'm not saying I am. I did think he did some nice things. I don't think that he necessarily. I don't think that he hurt the Cowboys at all. I think he gave them plenty of opportunities to win the game. And at the end of the day, obviously, Zerlin just didn't come through for them. And so Buccaneers, when you're playing the defending Super Bowl champs, you can't squander mistakes like that. But I thought the Cowboys looked good. I thought they looked better maybe than they have in recent years. And so maybe this is a year that they make a playoff run. I don't know.
There's no almost. So you either do or you don't. They didn't. That's kind of what it is. You get
Yeah.
those 4 turnovers, you got to make them pay. And like you said, a defending champ with a Hall of Fame quarterback, the GOAT, you got to kill him. You got to cut his head off. And they didn't. They gave him an opportunity. They left him too much time on the clock. I thought Dak looked good. He was healthy. He wasn't afraid to run. So that's all positive for them. The receivers played well. They just got to clean up the red zone issues. You got to score touchdowns down there. You can't kick field goals. You can't leave it to chance, with the kicker. Defensively, I thought they did okay. They got to come up with a pass rush, though. I thought that was sorely lacking. He had all day to pick and choose what he wanted to do. So, it's week one. So, they get those things cleaned up, then, they'll be okay going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. When Dak first came into the league, I think there was this massive question as to what type of quarterback is he, right? Because we'd seen a lot at Mississippi State, but that doesn't always translate, right? And so we know that he's a super athletic guy. He was a super smart player at Mississippi State, able to make the throws, but they used him in so many different ways at Mississippi State. You didn't really know what path he would take. And I got to say, I mean, over the years, Dak has just flat out impressed me so much, right? I think even people who are optimistic about Dak are impressed with Dak and his progression. And in no means am I saying he's perfect, but just from the outside looking in, I think Dak has looked great. I mean, at the end of the night, he had 403 yards. a quarterback rating of 101.4, a QBR of 74.4, which the fact that there's a QBR and then a rating is astounding to me, but that's a different conversation.
Yes.
He had one interception, right? I think to me, the most surprising thing, and I want to hear from both of you, because maybe I'm just ignorant from the outside looking in, and that certainly could be the case. It wouldn't be the first time. But at the end of the game, Ezekiel Elliott has 33 yards for 3 yards a carry. And I understand that's not solely on him. There's a lot of people that have to do their job for the running back to be able to succeed. But you built this offense so much around the run game historically as the Cowboys. You paid Zeke all the money. And it's certainly not just Zeke, because it's not like anybody else had a ton of success running the football. And I'm not saying that, that's the ultimate reason you lose the game. I think Byron pointed out a lot of good reasons as to why you ultimately lost this game. I just wonder, does the run game have to come back for Dallas to ultimately get where they want to go?
I would say so. I mean, I think besides maybe the Chiefs, I think most of other Super Bowl winning teams have had a good run game, right? I mean, even Patrick Mahomes, Damian Williams, when they won against the 49ers, really a lot of people thought he should have been Super Bowl MVP. And so there has to be an element of a strong run game there. You look at what the Buccaneers did last year, and that was part of the thing that the Browns tried to do yesterday as well, was not only obviously defense, the Buccaneers defense is light years ahead of where the Browns were yesterday, but also just being able to keep the ball away and then finish those drives as well, and play action. And obviously when you have Tom Brady, the GOAT, over there, then it's not going to go well for you. But it's not like Tom Brady did it on his own, right? Just dropping back 45, 50 times. I don't think that is a formula, a blueprint to win big games. I think they got to find a way to either feed Zeke the ball more or just, I don't know, go away from him completely, in my opinion.
It's just the matchups. This is a matchup league, so I don't know what they saw. I don't know if it was with the center being out, they just felt they didn't have the numbers or they didn't have the matchups they wanted. They were like, forget it. So, when they couldn't get the edge, I thought they did a good job in the screen game, throwing, using the screen game, the short passing game to attack the edges and move the ball that way. I thought Dak was very patient, so they made up for their lack of running game. But, yeah, as the season goes, you're going to have to run it some. You can't just let people tee off and pin their ears back because, even, the left tackle got a little bit leaky, and he's one of the best in the game. Vita Vea was just killing people. He could just tee off. He didn't have to worry about read and run. All he had to do was go. So I think they are going to have to get balanced at some point. It may not hurt them now, but to ultimately get where they want to go, they're going to have to find some balance.
Yeah, it's something I've often wondered, because it's just traditionally when we thought of the Cowboys, I think a few years ago, I think people had this beacon that Zeke was going to be the driving force. And as time goes on, Dak is just elevating his play to such a level that, he's looking really good as the quarterback. And, Amari did his thing. CeeDee's out there doing his thing. They have such a strong offensive unit as a whole. There's so much talent on that offense. It's a fun team to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. I don't think anybody's going to be able to do much for them on a talent point that's kind of in their division, right? I don't know who really – the Giants have a lot of question marks, especially with the injury to Washington now. They're a question mark. Now the Eagles, they have some stuff going. That's going to be a fun game to see, but Dallas is just so talented on offense. It's really cool. It's fun. It's so much fun to watch them. Not being able to get balance.
Can't hear you, Jalen.
Your audio cut out.
My audio cut out. Okay, sorry. I was like, what do you mean you can't? Richard said, we know that last season their offensive line was decimated, but what is wrong with them not being able to get balance? And I'm not sure maybe what the issue is, if it's continuity or whatnot, because of the fact that they had some injuries last year, and getting those pieces back. And maybe, again, offensive line play just takes a little bit of time to get together. But Byron, do you have anything for that?
I think it was a matchup. They didn't feel good about their matchup running the ball, and early on in the game they proved right. They couldn't. I mean, they tried.
Yeah.
They got stuffed, and they were like, "Nah, the way we're gonna have to throw it to win it." We got a quarterback that can do it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
We've had games like that in Indy with Peyton. Like, they've told him, "Hey, you're gonna have to throw it about 50 times a day," and just that's what the matchup dictated. So, you can't just run it to run it, just to say you're running it. It's got to be productive, and if they know you can't, they're not gonna. It's not gonna be productive. So. I just think it was a matchup. It was this week. It's week to week. Next week they could come out and run for 200 yards. You just the NFL, you don't know, but they just didn't feel good about that matchup, and that was something they game planned for because it was off the rip. They just were like, forget this. We're gonna short passing game. We'll throw screens and we'll get it that way.
Yeah, and to your point, the Buccaneers did much the same. I mean, the numbers passing from the Buccaneers were very analogous. The numbers running for the Buccaneers were very analogous. So both teams identifying that the secondary, I guess they both saw that the secondary was the weak point of the defense. So, I posed the question naturally, but we're only talking about it because the Cowboys lost. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't talk about the Buccaneers and how they had 14 attempts rushing in an NFL, 14 attempts rushing in an NFL game because they won. Right.
And then their secondary was probably worse than the Cowboys. I mean, they're running out of bodies. Absolutely. That was bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move on to the Colts game just because, that's a point that me and Byron could talk about. I was very disappointed when I saw, specifically from the defense. You just expected more from a defense that was, considered to be top 10 by most metrics last year. And so obviously, with Seattle Seahawks coming in, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, who continues to be one of the most severely underrated receivers in the league for whatever reason. And also DK Metcalf and Chris Carson, just loaded, right? You expect them to put up points, but it's just the explosive plays that got me. And obviously, we did not match any of that. I'm not going to be too hard on Carson Wentz because I don't think our offensive line played up to snuff at all. I saw some good things. I saw some things that I'm like, is he going to be the same quarterback he was in Philly? But it's week one. He didn't have a ton of time in training camp because of the foot scare and then also COVID towards the end. So I think that has time to get fixed. But I think for me, the defense was more concerning. Byron, what did you see? I think your mic cut out, B.
I didn't get to see much of their game. I just saw the highlights, and it was Tyler Lockett, going deep. But with Costanzo retiring, the injuries, Nelson just coming back. It's continuity, like you said. They haven't played together. You got a new offensive line, so that's going to take a little bit of time. I didn't see the defense. I just saw a bunch of big plays, which is, I know that's not what they like. I know that's not what Coach Schluss likes and not what he preaches. So definitely got to get that cleaned up.
So
Tyler Lockett, I have a funny story about him. Me and the director of college scouting at the time, we both gave him a 3rd round grade. We loved him as a returner. But like, this dude was the only guy they had at Kansas State. He torched everybody. And there was an assistant coach that said that he was a reject as a returner.
Really?
Yes. And we dropped him because of that. Not that he wasn't good or they blocked it up. Reject.
Well, that's I bet that's a bit awkward now.
Yeah,
I can imagine. So I didn't get to watch this game, right? And so I'm going to be completely just kind of from the outside looking in. But I thought Byron hit a great point. There's so much from this team that's missing in continuity. So I'm not super surprised when you're playing a team like Seattle that has an absolute magician at the quarterback position in Russ.
Yep.
And I get it. People talk about Russ, but I feel like he's one of those guys who's highly appreciated while not being appreciated enough for what he really does for his team. I mean, he's fantastic. I also have a bit of a soft spot. One of my good friends, David Moore, was on the Seattle Seahawks.
I gave him a good grade too, by the way.
Hey, that kid is athletic. Oh my!
And he's one of the best people you'll ever meet.
He's great.
Fantastic human being.
Yeah, he's awesome. We went to high school together. I've known him since we were young. He's great. I mean, he's if he gets an inch, he's gonna take a mile. I mean, you give him. So I do have a soft spot for them, and one of my favorite defensive players. I mean, in the league, at middle linebacker, Bobby Wagner. Right? I mean, he's just a missile in the middle of the defense. So when you mix in all the new Colts had with all that they're missing, I'm not super surprised to see struggle. And I think that's indicative of the big play. I mean, am I wrong there, Byron? That's usually the big plays. You see that out of new secondaries or new teams. They're not gelling together. So it's not super surprising to me.
No, but the lack of big plays are too. You know,
that's fair.
If you juxtapose that to the Colts,
that's fair.
You know, the run game, they didn't run the ball well, and you know, they didn't have any big plays in the passing game. So, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time to new quarterback, like I said, new offensive line. That's all going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Coach Frank will get them right.
Yeah, and Richard says, any concerns about the Colts wide receivers? I don't necessarily have one. I wish that Ty could stay healthy ever, but that never happened, so I can't expect it now. I feel like Michael Pittman's going to have a good year. I just don't think that it was there the other day. And again, when you don't get those reps in training camp with your quarterback as much as you probably would like to, things are going to happen. I can't say his name correctly, but the big wide receiver that was like a 7th rounder, is it Strachan?
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
is that? But that's not how you say it. It's like the C is silent, something like that. I mean, he looks really good. Heard good things out of him. Pascal looked good, I thought, on Sunday. I'm not overly concerned about them. I think again, once the running game grows, you know, we'll actually be able to take some play action shots, and Carson has the arm to actually hit those throws. Unlike old man River last year. So.
But yeah, they definitely got to get the O-line figured out, because if you're going to run those deep, you know, long development routes, he's got to have time. And from what I did see, he was under siege the entire day. Like, they were after him.
They were
the whole game.
Nope.
Yeah. I like I said, I didn't see it, but that right there was my one complaint, not to switch subjects, but with the Texas-Arkansas game, right? Like there was a pivotal sequence in that game where Texas was down big, but the game was still somewhat in reach, right? You get the drive going, you're good. Your offensive line is struggling all night. They can't contain a 3-man rush, let alone, God forbid, they bring 5, right? If they bring 5, it's a wrap. But you can't contain a 3-man rush. There's only 5 in the box, and they're dropping the 2 linebackers in zone. And on first down, it's deep shot. Second down, deep shot. And now it's third down, and you're in 3rd and 10.
Yep.
And your drive is done.
And they got home with 3 again.
And they got home with 3 again, and Hudson Card had to scramble. That to me was just perplexing, because I'm like, that would make sense to me if your offensive line was solid all night. Right, I could get it then. Like, okay, well, now you take the shot. You know, your quarterback has time. You didn't have a base to take a shot all night, and you wasted 2 plays. 2. So, yeah, I can't. In the NFL, you don't have an offensive line. It's going to be very hard to get those deep shots. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, that's the thing that I think was frustrating the most about the Colts game was, like, one of the reasons, like, everybody was like, oh, Carson may be able to resurrect his career in Indianapolis is because we were known for our offensive line. Our offensive line has been good the last couple of years. You know, obviously a couple years too late for Andrew Luck. Otherwise, maybe he'd still be playing with us. But I digress.
That hurt
right?
me.
So we've been known for that, right? Quentin Nelson, like you said, obviously Anthony Costanzo left, but you still got Ryan Kelly. You still got Braden Smith. Is that the guard from Auburn up there? I mean, really good guys. I just think it was continuity, and it just a tough game. So those things happen. I'm going to move on really quick, and then we'll get into the Nebraska OU preview. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I've talked to Byron a little bit about it throughout the day. Ty, one thing you will quickly find out about me, and I don't know if you've even seen it on Twitter the last couple of days. I am a self-proclaimed Baker Mayfield apologist.
Okay.
Because
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
I just feel like he's held to an incredibly high standard that no other quarterback is held to. Not no other quarterback, but the majority of quarterbacks are not held to.
I don't disagree.
And again, I get that he's the number one pick. I get all of that. But it just seems like I felt like he played a really, really good game yesterday. And obviously he has the interception at the end. And there's 50-50 on, okay, was he throwing it away? Was he not? I thought he was.
He absolutely was. There is no 50-50. Anybody that says he wasn't.
Watch the game. It's very clear that happened.
He was throwing that away.
But regardless, I think I don't understand how you come away from that game thinking, wow, Baker's not a really, really good quarterback because of what he did. He went into Arrowhead Stadium, threw for 321 yards, 75% completion percentage. And, I got people telling me, well, he didn't have a touchdown. So, Marcellus Wiley, who gets paid for a living to have takes, literally on his show today said, well, Baker really didn't do anything because he didn't have any touchdowns and he had the one interception. So he really didn't help his team. And I'm like, he didn't help his team. He didn't drive his team down the field to get them in position to even score. And you have two of the best running backs in the league.
Right.
Why would you not run in the red zone? You have the best run blocking and pass blocking O-line. Why would you not run in the red zone?
He had a 75% completion percentage.
Thank you. Right. And people are still tripping. That's what I'm saying. I really try not to sound crazy, but I feel like I am just at my wit's end defending him because people come at him for nothing, for no reason. And they're like, well, he didn't get it done. He couldn't go into Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes. And so he's just not the franchise.
That's happened a lot.
I'm like,
they have a Super Bowl.
Lamar.
Am I crazy just to think that this isn't that? I don't know. So the way I look at this, right, is because I'm from the outside looking in. Y'all being Oklahoma fans, I'm the same way with a lot of Alabama players, so I get it. I completely get it, right? It's that rider. But from the outside looking in, have we forgotten what the Browns were before? And it's not just Baker. The whole team has gotten better, and so now, obviously, they are held to a higher standard.
Great job.
Yeah, they've done a great job. And deservedly, they are held to a higher standard. I don't think any of us here disagree with that notion. But to sit here and think that the sky's falling because you lost, first off, that just shows how far the needle has moved. You get what I mean? Like, what was it, 4 years ago? We were sitting here wondering if the Browns were going to win a game, and now we're mad because they lost to a defending Super Bowl champ in a close game.
That the punter fumbled the ball away.
That's how far we've moved the needle. So if you really want to get psychological with it, it's a compliment. You know what I mean? Like, it's a misplaced compliment, albeit, but that's wild to me. I mean, he had 75% completion in the NFL. That's video game numbers.
And it's not like he wasn't dinking and dunking. I mean, his yards per attempt were 11.5.
Yeah.
So people are like, I'm like, he's throwing it down the field. People are on here like, oh, he's a game manager. He can't get it. I'm just like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. So I wanted to hear your thoughts, Ty and Byron.
That's as good as he's looked to me. I thought he was fantastic.
I thought the same.
He battled Mahomes score for score. I mean, Kansas City gets in the game, he goes right back down and puts him back up, and
almost like we were back in Lubbock in 2016, except there was a little bit of defensive play,
right
in this one.
I'm a big Baker fan too. Now, if he didn't go to OU, probably not, but he's our guy. So
he is our guy.
Yeah, I root for the guy. I can easily understand where some people think that he gets attacked unnecessarily because I think we have moved the needle so far on the Browns without really taking the time to appreciate how quickly that needle has moved and to what degree. right? I think that in and of itself shows you Baker's the real deal. Like, he is the guy for this team, and he has the confidence and the attitude to handle what it is that comes with being the Browns quarterback. And ultimately, not even speaking of his talent, that's there. But I think the mentality is just as important to taking on what it is the Browns have been. I think he's ultimately the guy. I don't think there's really a question about it.
Yeah, and I've told Byron this. I've told a lot of my friends this before. I'm not gonna sit here and definitively say that Baker is better than Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen had a great year last year. I think Josh Allen clearly has tons of upside. If he continues to play like that, then fine. But I will say, I always thought neither Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Sam Darnold would have been able to come into Cleveland and do what Baker's done. And I'm not saying off of a talent necessarily perspective, but a mental mindset. Nobody else could have done what Baker has done and dealt with what he dealt with and came through like he did. Again, people forget that he had 4 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators. This is his first year in having the same head coach, having the same offensive system, the same play calls. And I think he's going to ball out this year. And if we're talking about starting on the road against a defending AFC champ and losing by 4 really because of a Nick Chubb fumble and a punter gaff, and you throw for 321 yards, 75% completion percentage, and your team scores 29 points, I'm not mad at it.
No, that was a good game. They played him close in the play. They had him in the playoffs last year too. So he's done it twice. He's played them close twice.
Yep. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the college football side of things. I know Ty's probably excited about that, so he's got a lot to say. But I really like to get your guys' thoughts on this OU Nebraska game. I mean, it's really obviously hyped up because of the 100-year anniversary of the game of the century, right? And just being excited about everything that is OU Nebraska. And it's something that's kind of got lost with Nebraska being in the Big Ten for almost, I think, over 10 years now. Mm-hmm. And we haven't been able to see this dynamic. And so some of the kids maybe that are a little bit younger don't understand kind of how intense this rivalry was and has been. And so, just maybe to be able to talk about that in some light, and then we'll talk about just the game in general itself and what we can expect. So, Byron, my question for you is, man, because obviously you are the elder statesman in the group. You're only 28 years of age, right? So a little bit older than the rest of us. But what can you tell us about the OU Nebraska rivalry, maybe that me and Ty didn't get to see or experience?
My uncle played in it, the game of the century. That's so. I've literally grown up with Thanksgiving. It was OU Nebraska to go to the Orange Bowl. That's how it always was. I was at the game in '85. Keith Jackson, the reverse. I was at the game as an 8th grader. So it's just what it always was. It was always us and them to win the Big 8. So, it's lost its luster. We had our down period in the 90s. They were really good. We got good, and then they kind of dipped. So that's taken away from it a little bit. But if you just go back to history, some of the names of people that have played in that game, it's just ridiculous. I went to high school with Will Shields and Mike Minner, who went to Nebraska. So, it was just Dwell Brewer went to OU, who was also a teammate. So it's all I've known is, it wasn't Oklahoma, it wasn't OU OSU, it wasn't Bedlam, it wasn't OU Texas, even though, that was a big one. It was always OU Nebraska. You knew what you were watching on Thanksgiving weekend. It was that game.
And Byron, this commenter says, who is your uncle?
His name is Clyde Powers. He was a defensive back. He's from Lawton, Oklahoma, played with the Giants from 74 to 78, I believe.
Gotcha. And then your boy Frightening's in the chat too, Ty.
Hey, Frightening. Thanks for stopping by, man. Just talking about this rivalry reigniting. But I have almost from the opposite side of it, because my dad was such a Nebraska fan. I mean, I still, from the boxes of stuff from the ranch, I still have old Nebraska, Riddle jackets. I mean, I have the old hats. I got the VCRs. of the there. And I remember Crouch. Y'all remember him? He was a baller, man. But those days are a long ways past for Nebraska, right? And it has not been kind as of recent. The Scott Frost hire at the time looked like a great hire. I mean, it made complete sense, right? If I'm the Nebraska AD, I'm looking at that hire, and I don't doubt it because of how much sense it made. You wanted a guy that had the roots. You got the guy that had the roots.
Yep.
But this game, it's funny you mention it. A lot of people have forgotten how good Nebraska was in the 90s. Like, they were synonymous with success. I mean, they were just such a good team, and this game meant so much. The only reason I really remember a lot of it is seeing it on VCR, but I remember my dad always telling me when we'd be at Norman, he'd just be like, yeah, this is the big rivalry. Like, that was the game he looked forward to so much, was that Oklahoma-Nebraska game. So it's really special that it's coming back, but what a shame to have it at noon.
Yeah.
That should be the night game.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's not the sole reason, but it's
The big reason.
It seemed to be the break in the dam of why Oklahoma was ready to roll to the SEC. I don't know if either of you had the chance to watch Oklahoma Western Carolina last weekend, but
I watched bits and pieces.
But Joe Castiglione, the Oklahoma AD, was in an interview, and one of the light poles wasn't working, and so he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what's up with it. It must be used to 11 a.m. games." And I was on the floor. I was rolling. Just a shot. He's hilarious. But yeah, it is a shame it's at 11 a.m. But can't do anything about it. We're gonna roll with it anyway. So I want to ask you guys this question, both of you. Adrian Martinez obviously is the do-it-all guy for Nebraska. He's true dual threat quarterback. Now I don't think he's that great passing the ball. You look at his numbers, he's averaged, I think, 250 yards a game now. He didn't look great against Illinois, but they played, I think, Buffalo and then Fordham. So, he's going to probably look good against those schools. I think the bigger concern is their offensive line, maybe more than him per se. And with Oklahoma's defensive line and how they are and have looked this year, that's not a good combination. And so I don't know if it's going to be a good day for him on Saturday.
Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, so I've just pulled up, some of his past games. Martinez against Buffalo, 242 yards. They beat Buffalo 28-3. Had a big game against Fordham. Had a really good game against Fordham where he had 254 yards, 17 of 23. Both of those games, I mean, he displayed the talent with the legs, especially against Buffalo, going over 100 yards. Mm-hmm. And to your point, if I'm Oklahoma, I'm keeping him in the pocket because he is at his best when he is scrambling and they're doing something to get the ball out of his hand quickly and in the hands of the playmaker, right? But if he's getting them off center, out of the pocket, he becomes a different beast to deal with, right? Now, the good news for Oklahoma is your pass rush and your defensive front should be able to keep him in that pocket. But he went over 100 against Buffalo running the football. So he is a legit threat running the ball. The passing might not be where you want it to be, but that's where Frost needs to get creative, right? You got to do something to get the ball out of his hand, get him moving, get him throwing from the run, get the ball to your playmakers. But if I'm Oklahoma, I'm just trying to keep him right there in the pocket. I want him to beat me with his arm. If you're going to beat me anyway, show me you can do it with your arm for 4 quarters.
I agree. And our at least to Kansas State, our downfall has been, kind of the dual threat read option game because we're such an aggressive scheme, wanting to get up the field, wanting to stunt and twist and do everything that Alex Grinch does. All defensive lines shift right before the play and slant a specific way, which, can cause a lot of negative plays, can cause a lot of forced fumbles, is all well and good. But if you miss it, then it could be bad for you, which is kind of what happened to us in Alex Grinch's first year at Kansas State. And so, yeah, I agree. I think we got to do a really good job of keeping him in the pocket and not letting him get loose on the ground because that will probably hurt us.
Yeah, I think the game plan has to be kind of the second quarter against Tulane because I thought that quarterback, he did some things with his legs too. and they kind of switched how they attacked it. They started attacking him and not just sitting back. So I think they gotta, you gotta pick your spots definitely, but you definitely got to bring the action to him. And don't let him get comfortable running. Don't let him get comfortable throwing. You got to bring the action to him a little bit, but you got to be smart with how you do it. I'm not as down on the secondary as most. I know the first week they were rotating a lot of guys because somebody in another chat brought up, they got 9 weeks in a row before a bye. So you got to keep people healthy. I think that led to some of the issues on defense, and that, along with what you said, you guys both said that they couldn't sustain a drive, in the second half. So they got worn down a little bit, but I think they'll be better. I think this is a good week to show everybody what everybody wants to see, which is a consistent 60-minute effort, not dominate for a quarter or, quarter and a half, that you come out from the beginning and you just dominate, because that's what we've got to start going to the SEC. The standard is Alabama. That's the standard. You've got to start matching that. We're the standard in the Big 12, but we're trying to go to the national championship level. It's Alabama. So we've got to start matching that intensity for 60 minutes. And this is a good week to start.
I completely agree. And, I was telling Kirsten, my wife, Ty, I was telling her earlier this week or earlier this weekend, after we beat Western Carolina 76-0, she was like, well, it's Western Carolina. I said, yes. But I was like, but we still pitched a shutout. And that's not often that's happened. On top of that as well, I was like, it's more the mentality switch that mattered.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter who's in front of you. It doesn't matter if it's Western Carolina or Nebraska or Florida, whoever. They need to get your best. So that's more what I was looking at. We knew we was going to blow them out. But the fact that we won the game the way we did, I think is more encouraging, and hopefully going into a Nebraska game where, again, better opponent in terms of physicality, and they can match up maybe a little better. But still, most people would say that we're 21-point favorites, I think.
I need to check on that, actually.
Yeah, and so we just we had to come out just like we did last weekend with the same mentality, same intensity. Now I am interested, and Ty, maybe you can speak a little bit to this as well. Nebraska's defensive line, I thought, is pretty good as well. I don't think they're snubs either. And so if our offensive line looks anything like they did against Tulane, then it may be trouble for Spencer Rattler and company as well.
Yeah, the Nebraska defensive front was really, really solid against Illinois, specifically when they were able to have a feel for what Illinois was doing. I mean, they were deadly, and they were teeing off, right? They've got some ends on that defense that they're nice. They're rangy, they're lanky, they're fast, and they can use it. The Nebraska defense is legit. Illinois really started pulling away from that game whenever they were to get Nebraska on their heels, right? Whenever Nebraska would have to sit and think for a second, they were really able to take advantage of that. And as the game went on and they were able to establish the run in conjecture with the pass, because I think, what did Illinois start? A quarterback that really was a new quarterback, right? Yeah. Once they got him going, I think in the second or third, he hit a deep shot, 15, 25 yards, so intermediate to deep shot on the left side of the field as they were driving. And after that, Nebraska really had a hard time because he felt himself passing the game after that. So if I'm Nebraska, if I'm playing devil's advocate on defense, I might just roll the dice and send pressure, right? Like, I'm trying anything I can to make Spencer Rattler feel uncomfortable. And I've seen that Oklahoma's offensive line, talented, has had a bit of struggles, right? That's consistent across the country, as we've seen right now, right? That's the big issue with a lot of teams right now. But I'm just trying to get Spencer off his mark. I'm trying to get him to do things unconventionally, because even though he has the talent to do it, it's like that old saying we've all heard, just because you can do something might not mean you should do it. It's like that little jump back pass he does. Yeah, just because you have the talent to do it doesn't mean you should do it on a pass-by-pass basis.
His first pick against Tulane.
Yeah, right.
You can make that throw, but take the safe one. Take the running back in the flat.
Especially the running back is great.
Yeah.
Easy. And if I'm Nebraska on offense, I'm just trying to utilize as much pre-snap motion as I can to just create any sort of doubt on the defense, especially when Oklahoma, if I could pinpoint two areas that I don't want to say that have been weaker points for Oklahoma's defense, and at least against Tulane, it was the inside linebacking core and the secondary for me, right? Especially they'd get kind of caught up in some pre-snap motion, and the secondary, I think a lot of that is rotation. But if I'm Nebraska, I don't really know what else I'm going to draw up with the talent deficiency I have relative to Oklahoma has. So I'm drawing up a lot of pre-snap motion, and I'm mixing up pressures, but I got to get Spencer uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, I would. Yeah, I would agree. And I
And
think
they better expect it, like you said, to his point. Just expect them to throw the kitchen sink at you. Nothing is off the table. If they score, they may go onside kick. What the heck? We ain't got nothing to lose.
Scott Frost's job may well be on the line here.
Yeah.
So they're going to come with it.
Yeah. And to your guys' point, and maybe adding on top of it, if OU can't establish a run game early, I think me as a fan, I would be concerned because if, like you said, Ty, if that is happening and Nebraska's defensive line is able to tee off on Spencer Rattler, you always see him do well with pressure. Now, again, I thought he looked a lot better last week, the first week. And again, I know it was Western Carolina, but more than his stats, it was what we were looking for as far as was he standing in the pocket. And I felt like he was the majority of the time. I didn't see him backpedal like he did against Tulane. I didn't see him try to float balls. I saw him step into the majority of his throws. And that, again, is more what I was looking at more than who we were playing was, are those tendencies going to continue? Because that's what will happen or matter, as the season moves on, as we play more competition. Is he going to be able to continue to do that? Or is he just going to get flustered and go back to his old ways? I think that's what we're going to probably have to see against Nebraska. Obviously, I hope they keep him clean and we don't have to worry about that at all. And he goes through reads with Marvin Mims and Mario Williams and Mike Woods and Jaden Hazelwood and Austin Stogner and Jeremiah Hall and Braden Willis, just to give you a glimpse of the weapons that we got. Hits them all for touchdowns, right? But at the end of the day, he just has to be confident in his game and knowing the system and trust the system. I mean, that's something he struggled with a little bit last year, maybe struggled with in the first game, was just trusting Lincoln Riley, who for 5 years now has been pretty much the undisputed best play caller, play designer in college football, if not all of football. And so you got to trust that guy, the guy that had 3 quarterbacks of his completely ball out yesterday in Kyler, Jalen Hurts, and Baker Mayfield. So trust that guy, right? Trust what he's doing. Trust his system. Trust what he's gonna get for you.
And he's a typical. I mean, he's got a cannon. So running quarterbacks, they have legs. They want to run. That's what they've done all their life. This kid's probably had a rifle all his life. So he's gonna take more chances than most because he sees things that I can get the ball there or I can make this throw. Peyton was like that too. Peyton, he was accurate and he knew he could put the ball in different places. And he's not a dink and dunk quarterback. They're going to take chances. You're going to live a little bit, a few more interceptions than normal because that's them. They're aggressive. They're not going to, they're not going to dink and dunk. That first interception was 2 feet away from being a great play, but it wasn't like he said, it wasn't the smart play. Smart play is take the back, live to fight another day. And that was the biggest change, I think, in Peyton was Coach Dungy. It's okay to punt. He's got to get in that mindset. We have a defense now. You don't have to go score every play. Some plays are dead plays. Get rid of it and let's go back and regroup. And he's still a young quarterback. This is his first year with a true off season, a true spring, a true training camp. So he's still a young guy. So he's still growing. I think he'll be fine. But, you want to see him take that step to where he's making the smart plays going forward.
Yeah. I made a video before the Oklahoma game on Saturday. And basically the video is, okay, well, I want to see a statement out of Oklahoma. And a lot of people were commenting and they were like, oh, but it's WCU. What are you going to see? And I had to tell people, I get it. Like, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. I hear the logic. But when the question has to be asked, if you can bring it with intensity and passion for 4 quarters, then it doesn't really matter who you're playing. The opponent is of much less importance than actually what we're taking away from the game, right? And in the small details. In that sense, we can take a lot out of any game, depending on who you play. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's interesting you say that, Byron, because I did a video with a guy who evaluates quarterbacks on YouTube, Quarterback Spotlight, does phenomenal content. And one of the things we were talking about is with Spencer, so many young quarterbacks have to learn how to succeed. And with Spencer, it was almost the opposite, where he was so used because of how talented he is. In high school, he could do anything. I mean, anything. You watch his high school highlights, and they're unbelievable. You watch his full games, and he's just saucing on kids. Like, however they want it, he's giving it to them. But when you get into college and you can't do that, you almost have to learn how to fail as opposed to learning how to succeed. And I can't imagine how much harder that is than learning how to succeed, is learning how to fail when the nation is watching. I can't imagine the mental fortitude, right, that takes. I don't think that gets talked about, but that kid's younger than us. And he's got the eyes of the nation on him, and he's learning how to grow as a quarterback, as a man. Like, you know, hats off to him, because that takes.
I mean, just to come back from the Texas game last year.
Exactly.
I mean, having people do that, to have the second half that he had. So there's something to him. You know, besides talent, he's got some other stuff, but like everybody, he's got stuff he needs to work on too.
Absolutely.
I wanted to get back to a comment Carvan Jackson had up here. He said, actually, he thinks Nebraska is a quarterback away. Ty, what do you think about that? Do you agree with that sentiment?
I think a quarterback would certainly help, but here's ultimately, like, I guess now I think if you say that, then we're guessing that the play calling would suddenly work. And when I'm watching Nebraska, I don't think that they're putting their quarterback now in the best place to succeed. When we watch that Illinois game, if either of you have time throughout the week, please go back and let me know. Because if I'm wrong, I would love nothing more than to learn about maybe why I was wrong. So if you do have time, please do. They kept him in the pocket all game long, right? And it was very obvious that Martinez is not getting it done from the pocket, but they didn't get him throwing from outside the pocket. They didn't get anything moving. Instead, Frost kept him standing there getting teed off on. Even if he's not the guy, and I don't think he is, and I hate to be, but let's just be honest, right? Like, he's not Spencer Rattler back there throwing the football. You didn't do him any favors from a coaching perspective. At a certain point, I think we need to stop blaming players and look at the scheme they're presented with and see maybe that they're just not put in a good place to succeed. I don't disagree. I certainly don't disagree. Would a different quarterback help? Maybe, probably. But is that the real issue? I find it hard to believe.
It didn't look like they blocked. They didn't protect. And I didn't see them running the ball either from what I saw of that game. So as we saw this weekend in Arkansas, I think, you know, front seven on both sides matter.
Yeah.
Hard to win a game when you're giving up 7.1 yards a pop on the ground. My God.
I mean, OU knows about that. I mean, the two backs from Georgia are still running.
Oh, my God.
Pasadena.
Lord.
Still running. Chubb Michelle, still running.
Still too soon. It's too soon to talk
Hey, I hear you. Zeke did that to us in 2015.
Yeah.
God.
Now granted, that, you know, Chubb, obviously, I think by most metrics is a top 5, if not top 3 running back in the NFL. Now, however, it's not that it was like he's just breaking all these tackles. Except there was one play where he did that, but I think that was more Oklahoma defenders not tackling him than him breaking the tackles. But it was one specific.
He was scot-free.
Yeah, it was one specific play that I remember very distinctly. And it looked a lot. Did you guys both watch the Browns and Chiefs game?
Mm-hmm.
I watched it intermittently.
It looked a lot like what happened on the touchdown. I think that put them up 22-10 in the second quarter, where Baker faked it to the right, and it was a counter scheme. And the gap was like
split. Yeah.
So in the Georgia-Oklahoma game, I don't know if you remember, but we had I think it was either Trey Norwood or Parnell Motley. Like, they were kind of in the middle of the field, and like almost everybody was on the right side of the field. Yeah, correct. The
I know
right.
exactly what play you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean,
Burned into memory.
Even on a broadcast, like a regular broadcast, not 22 film, a regular broadcast, if you're a regular fan, you could tell Georgia was about to score on a run to the right side because there was nobody there.
There was like 8 people to the right of the center.
And I'm over here.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking. I'm over here screaming, Mike, what are you doing? I'm like, they're going to score. What's going on? And lo and behold, I don't remember if it was Michelle or Chubb, but untouched, just right to the end zone. And I'm just beside myself, like, what's going on?
I mean, it's kind of what Arkansas did. You know, they just ran that. It was just numbers.
Oregon as
quarterback follow, quarterback lead.
Yeah.
And then they would run RPO and bam. It wasn't, it wasn't a whole lot of scheme, or they didn't just draw it. They were just like, look, this is what we're going to do. Here we go.
Yeah. You're going to feel us for 60 minutes. Are you prepared?
Here we go. We just coming downhill every play. It wasn't complex at all.
In my live stream earlier, I said it's a much lesser degree, that Arkansas-Texas game, but I couldn't help chuckle while watching it because it reminded me of an Alabama player. And it was when we had Derrick Henry. And you knew from the first snap to the end, Derrick Henry is going to run it at you. But the difference is come the fourth quarter, he still wants to hit you, and you don't want to hit him. And that's the difference. But he's rearing to run you over, but you don't want any part of 250 pounds coming at you like that.
No question.
At all.
Arkansas, man, what a win. What a win for the Pigs.
Yeah, that was nuts. I've never seen a 5-man box, and they literally shut everything down. I've never seen that. I text RJ during the game. I'm like, bro, it's a 5-man box. And they're like, I've never seen that.
The last time I saw something like that where a team was hitting home that effectively was the 2017 playoffs, Alabama versus Michigan State, where I think Alabama blitzed one time but ended the game with like 5 sacks. I mean, they just teed off on them all night. They weren't sending any Arkansas didn't have to send any pressure. None.
It was blowing dudes off the line. I mean,
It was
5 yards deep. And I tried to tell some Texas fans because I try to be reasonable. Obviously, there are rivals, but I'm not crass with it. I said, look, your guys' offensive line was okay last year, and you lost your best lineman to the NFL, Samuel Cosmi. So I'm like, well, I don't care. I don't care what you think Sark is bringing. I don't care if you think he's the best play caller because of what he did in the national championship game at Alabama. You don't have the offensive line for all that.
With a Heisman winner, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, and Mac Jones.
I was like, you just don't. Even if you have the talent at Texas, which, I mean, they have talent. I mean, John Robinson, I think, is probably
incredible.
One of the best running backs, if not the best in the nation, who, again, has a terrible offensive line, and they don't give him anything. But also on top of that, you're not going to be able to run these deep shots like you were talking about, Ty. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's why you saw Sark make the change to Casey Thompson today, is because Casey's not gonna get sacked very easily. He may not have the same upside that Hudson Card does, or the same arm talent necessarily, but he's gonna put you in better positions more consistently.
He's decisive. He's decisive, and the young guy looked a little shook to me.
Yeah,
as he's a typical young guy, and it was rocking and rolling in Fayetteville. It was loud. They were coming. So it's to be expected. The young kid will be okay. Yeah. But, I mean, to me, I'm partial to Casey anyway. I know his dad. I've grown up with his dad in Lawton, Oklahoma. So I'm a big Charles Casey Thompson fan. So I'm happy to see him get a shot. I hope he does well. But that's a tough spot to put a kid that's in his second start. Tough spot.
Yeah.
Huge win for Arkansas. Easily the biggest win in 5 years at least?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At least. I mean, great for the program.
Yeah. And again, regardless of if people thought Texas was overrated or not, it's just the fact that regardless of if Texas was even ranked, just Arkansas, Texas, right? And the history there from the Southwestern Conference. I mean, Fayetteville was up for that game, man. You could tell. I mean, and living in Northwest Arkansas for a couple of years, and obviously my family having lived there up until, my dad passed and my mom just moved back to Oklahoma. My family lived there for the last decade. I mean, they've been waiting for that. I can tell you that. They have been waiting for that. And I think Sam Pittman. I heard somebody talking about it today. It was Josh Pate. I don't remember who he works for right now.
24/7.
Yeah. But he was talking about. He just said like, sometimes you have to be authentic in how you build your culture and like remember that it comes in layers. But if you're not authentic at the core, then that's never going to happen. And he was like, Sam Pittman is as authentically Arkansas as anybody could be.
Mm-hmm.
And he fits that. And he's got that thing like, even if they don't, do too well once they get into SEC West play, and even if they end at 7-6 or something like that, just that win alone is going to propel that program forward because of what it brought, because of what it meant, the night game, the national stage. Again, football's kind of back in Fayetteville to that effect, and I think it has everything to do with the fit you have at the coaching position. So,
they lost to North Texas badly like 3 or 4 years ago. That's where they were. I mean, everybody remembers that fake punt, but it was over with long before that fake punt.
You'll see that notebook right back there, right? That UNT notebook? Yeah.
Hey, okay, so 2 things. One, I want to have you guys answer this question before we head out here, and then I'll just have, if anybody in the conversation has any other questions, you can ask them now, and then maybe Ty, if you have any questions specifically for Byron. I know I have a couple, maybe NFL or draft related questions I wanted to ask him, and if you do too,
I would love to.
He could give some of his expertise, and we'll kind of end our time in that. But what do you guys think of this question that's on the screen right here? Richard says, is it a physicality or a mentality or development or all the above that seems to be lacking in Austin?
I don't know about development just yet. They just got there, so I don't know, but it's just kind of how Austin is. It's they have a ton of money. They don't want for anything. They're treated like princes. So it's all of that. It's kind of like a lot of kids nowadays. It's entitlement. You got to go get it. You got to earn the respect and wins and titles. They got to get back to that. They had it in the early 2000s, when it was OU and Texas running the Big 12. They just got to get back to that. Building a culture of competition where you compete every day. A good friend of mine is Alonzo Highsmith, who played with Miami in the 80s. And he was like, you had to practice every day because there was somebody behind you that would, if you had a bad day, you were out and you may not play again. So they've got to get back to that. Oklahoma has done a good job of that, and they're going to have to continue that forward going to the SEC because it's a different animal. Everybody heard Coach Saban speech after the Miami game.
Yeah.
You'd have thought they lost by 30, not won by like 35 or whatever they won by, because he didn't like how they prepared. He didn't like their attitude. And it's like you said, the little things, that little focus, coming to practice a little loose and not on top of things. And he is great at that. I've been to his practices before going back to Michigan State. This dude, if somebody steps the wrong angle, the position coach is going to hear about it and the kid's going to hear about it. He's that meticulous. So, they've got to get back to that. I don't know how long the Big 12 is going to be around in its current iteration, but it's best when Texas is good. The conference is better when Texas is good. So, hopefully they get it back just for the sake of the conference, because everything is better when they're good.
Yeah, college football is better when Texas is good. But have y'all ever seen Shrek? I love that movie, right? And there's one of my favorite parts is where they're all in front of that mirror, and the little short king is figuring out which princess he wants to save, and the executioner's back there saying, "Number 3, my lord." To answer this question, it's number 3. And Byron's completely right. I absolve Sark of any development issues at Texas because that's not his fault. Yeah. He just got there, right? That staff is absolved. But I'm going to tell y'all a nut stat, right? Something that's wild. Vince Young was taken in 2006, right? Since the draft after Vince Young was taken, how many first-round draft picks do you think the Texas Longhorns have had? So from the 2007 draft to last year, how many first-rounders? And I might be off by one.
A rack bowl. Ooh, not a lot. 3?
6.
6? Okay.
6. Now, right? That it's great to have a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
But Texas perennially recruits within the top 15. All right. In that same time span from 2007 on, they've had 0 offensive first-round draft picks.
I knew
0.
that. Yeah.
Right. And this brings me back to when the Brockermeyer twins were deciding where they wanted to go play college football, Alabama or Oklahoma or Texas. I'm sorry. And when they picked Alabama, they were asked why. And they just pointed and they said, because 11 of the last 12 tackles at Bama are playing on Sundays.
Yeah.
What do you mean why? Right? Like, why? It's because Saban has 36 first-round draft picks since 2009. Right? Like, that's development. And I'm certainly not holding everybody to the standard of development of Alabama. Right? This is a historic run we're seeing, and I completely understand that. But at the same time, you're Texas, and 6 is not good enough. 6 is not when Alabama sent 6 last year. LSU sent 6 the year before in the first round, right? Like, other teams are sending 3 guys, and you haven't sent an offensive guy since 2007. So development is a bit of it, but Sark and them, that's a coaching staff that I think can get that right, just because I look at Bo Davis on the defensive line, right? And he's a dude. PK, I really like the scheme PK has. It didn't show Saturday. But from a schematic standpoint, what he did in Washington was so much fun to watch, right? What he did with the outside linebacker position was so much fun to watch. And so this coaching staff is fun, but it's a culture problem. It's a mentality problem. It's a physicality problem. It's a development problem. But Sark and them get to alleviate one of them because they're not in charge of development right now. Yep. But they can affect physicality. They can affect mentality. And that wasn't there on Saturday. I know that was a very long-winded answer, and I'm sorry for that. That stat just absolutely blows my mind. 6 picks since 2007 in the first round. That's just wild to me.
Yeah. And like Barry Switzer used to always say, it's not X's and O's, it's Jimmy's and Joe's. Yeah, you got to get guys that want to compete, and that's what Alabama does better than anybody right now.
It's not like Texas doesn't recruit well, and that's the part that just blows my mind. You're a team that recruits really well. I can name off a lot of teams that don't recruit as well, but when we look at the development ratio, have a higher development ratio over the past decade. Right? If you're Austin, you cannot have that. And I know a lot of people are thinking NIL is going to help them, and it certainly will. It will, to a degree, right? Austin has a lot of media attention. It has a lot of media availability. It will help them to a degree. But at the end of the day, that rookie contract in the first round trumps any NFL money you're going to make. So you can go and make some NIL money, right? Not NFL, NIL money. You can go and make a little bit of NIL money, and that's awesome.
Right.
Or you can come and be the next first round player that plays for 1 year, and you're a one and done into the first round. Byron, what are those first round contracts looking like as opposed to the second and third?
So it's a big difference.
It's a huge difference between the top 3 and 5 picks, and then that bottom in the first round. It's a world of difference.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I got blasted this summertime by a lot of Texas fans because I made a video about the NIL and it got them in their feelings because they were all saying, "Oh, well, Texas is really going to take off with the NIL, and y'all ain't going to be able to stop us once this happens because Austin's going to be able to provide this, and we're going to be able to provide this, and we have all this money." I'm like, okay, are you going to develop though? Because you guys have always recruited well. And now on top of that, well, that's only going to get you so far. Because if you don't win on the field, kids are not going to continue to come there. Because again, like you just stated, NIL money is a little bit, right? It's a little bit of change.
It's funny money compared to that NFL money.
You look at the first round draft pick money that specifically from Oklahoma, you can look at what Baker and Kyler are getting, and both of them will probably get. I think they'll give Kyler his contract next year, based off what he did the first game, and Baker definitely get his contract next year, if not in the middle of this year. What they're gonna make on their paydays, that's what you see, right? What I think CeeDee Lamb's probably gonna make in a couple years, right? And as a first round draft pick, that's what you see, and that's the money that matters, not the NIL money, not the little dink and duck change you can get, right? And and obviously I had to have the conversation with my sister because she runs track at Oklahoma, and so Byron, she probably gonna be mad at me putting her on blast in front of you, but I'm gonna do it. How come that they had 3 team meetings about NIL and she didn't listen to any of them?
Leave my friend alone. Leave my friend alone.
Nah, I was mad.
Leave my friend alone. I love Grace. Leave her alone.
But for real, like, just
she got to go to the meetings now. Grace, come on now.
Yeah, come on. To wrap it up. At the end of the day, like you said, it just has to be a complete culture shift at Texas, and I don't know if that's going to be something Sark can do. I think you have to have a Saban type of mentality or presence to do that, just like Saban did at Alabama with those boosters, and he's kind of eradicated them in it's his world. That has to happen at Texas, because if it doesn't, it's going to be the same cycle over and over and over and over again.
Agree 200%. And another thing, the part of the reason the recruiting isn't as good as I'll probably get killed, but the high school football in Texas, not the same as it was 10 years ago. Modern Day came down here and destroyed Duncanville. I mean, they look so big, so fast. You remember what
IMG did Duncanville the year before too, right?
It's not the same as it used to be 10 years ago. That's part of the problem.
So IMG came down here and handled. But to be fair to IMG is a little bit of a different. Yeah,
that's a different animal. So, they're recruiting. They got them from all over. Yeah.
Unless you're Bishop Sycamore, you don't stand a chance against IMG.
Yeah, I know a relative of a kid that goes to IMG, and he's a monster. Offensive lineman, he is a monster. So that's a different animal. But Texas football, you need to check yourself a little bit. You might want to get back to being physical and not spread out all the time.
Yeah. Hey, Ty, you got any specific questions for Byron before we head out?
So there's one that I've been thinking about all day. I can't explain to you why I have this question that's just burning into my mind, because I don't disagree with the draft pick, but I'm just so enamored with the logic behind it and the logic games that go into this, right? And it revolves around Denver, okay? I love the pick of Patrick Surtain, because I'm a big Patrick Surtain fan. His dad was great. My light's not cooperating, but we're going to ignore that. So my question is, though, if you knew Drew Lock wasn't the guy, why not grab a quarterback there, right? Like, what's the logic game?
Where did they pick?
They got, they were 7th, I think, right before the Cowboys, but Justin Fields was still on the board. Mac Jones was still on the board. So you had some quarterbacks, you have those great wide receivers. And look, I'm a Vikings fan, so I have a soft spot for Teddy B. I really like Teddy Bridgewater. This is not meant to be a slight on him. But in a quarterback league, what's kind of the logic games there?
I can't speak to it. I think they might like Drew Lock and just think he needs to sit and learn.
That's fair.
So you just you can get Teddy as a bridge guy to get you to that point. No pun intended. Thank you. But that could be it. You don't want to start over when you've invested in this guy and you think he can be the guy. So you don't want to bring a young guy in and have to start that process all over. So that could be it. They could just feel that they need a corner too, because you got a guy who will be a phenomenal player. I think Surtain's going to be a monster. So, I don't know, not being in that room, I have no idea what the discussion was, but all of those things could be what it is. They might like Drew and just think he needs to sit and develop a little bit. So who better to learn from than a consummate pro like Teddy?
Yeah. Yeah, don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. Another question I had, Byron, or just maybe a thought, a story you could tell. What's I want to say wildest. Wildest is probably not a good term. What's the most interesting scouting story that you could tell?
From
Ooh,
so
that's
many
a good
ways to go.
That's
So,
a good one.
which interesting how?
Oh,
Just
I love the
shocking.
question to the question. First off, this is opening up a whole new world of possibilities. Let's.
There's so many.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the stuff I couldn't tell you on here anyway, but
Yeah.
Now I'm even more intrigued.
I would say that you can tell that's maybe shocking to some of us that are
shocking.
yeah.
That's a great question.
Not specific, just like coaches. Like there's some really, really good coaches that can't evaluate. You know, some of the players that have been rejected by coaches, it would blow your mind. Like there's an offensive lineman that we all as a staff really, really, really liked, who's probably going to be an all-pro, that one of our coaches was like, I think he's a reject. Like not a reject for us, that he can't play in the league. And we were just like, he's at the top of the board, coach. So that means none of the rest of these guys are any good. Like it happens a lot that the coaches, while they can coach, some of their evaluations, they'll blow your mind. Like the Tyler Lockett story.
Yeah.
Like to reject that kid as a returner, I was just like, I know Kansas State, they always do a good job of blocking stuff up, and they've always been great on special teams, but to say the kid can't, So stuff like that happens a lot. Some of the fights, usually draft day is real quiet. It's boring. That the movie Draft Day was probably the worst movie I've ever seen. Like y'all couldn't have ever been in a draft room because none of that stuff literally happens. It's real quiet. They'll ask a few questions and then, what do you think about this guy? Give me a story again. It's not anything like what you see. The trades, they don't go down like that. They're calling picks ahead. When it gets to your pick, you've already got the trades lined up, or if you want to make a trade, if your player's not there, who can we deal with? Who might want to deal? All of that stuff is pretty much done long before you get to that pick. So it's real quiet. It's real boring.
Byron, you see that question right there?
That's a great question.
What about a most unexpected pick you witnessed from a team I have scouted for? Okay. I can tell you one that threw everybody off. The Raiders took a safety from, I think he was Miami of Ohio, in the first round, that he just ran real fast. He had a wonderful workout.
Oh, the Raiders and their speed.
Yeah. And nobody had ever heard of this kid. Like when they called his name, ESPN didn't even have a highlight reel of this kid.
Oh, no.
It was that bad. We had him like in the 6th or 7th round just because he ran fast. And they took him like in the first. The most unexpected pick that we did was probably Philip Dorsett.
I think you told me that.
Yeah, that was a little. We didn't know on that one. We thought we were gonna take a lineman, and so when they called us in there, they're like, "Guess who?" And we were going through all these names. They were like, "No." That they were like Dorsett. We were like, "Who?" Oh, okay. So that one was a little bit of a shock, but usually they're not. Especially with Ballard, there's not a whole bunch of surprises. The board is set; they come off, and you take them.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of discussion, and then it's done.
For those of you who don't know, or that weren't here at the beginning, Byron was a scout for the Colts for about 19 years. I think last
23.
year. Oh, 23.
Give me my credit.
Was it
23? Give me my credit.
My bad.
I'm kidding. I
was younger. But no, he was a scout for the Colts for a long time. Last year he was not there. And so I think you are looking to get back in the scouting game currently.
We'll see. whatever, that's a whole nother discussion too. But
yeah. But again, anyways, he has lots of knowledge, and again, he was with the one team for forever, which is if you missed it, that's kind of part of our story. My dad and him are best friends from Oklahoma, and my family ended up in Indianapolis. Just moved up here because my mom got a job with Eli Lilly, and then Byron not followed us, but just happened to get a job with the Colts, and he still. He lives currently in Frisco. He's still in Frisco.
Mm-hmm.
He lives currently in Frisco, and he would come up to Indianapolis. And every time he come up, him, I just have fond memories of me coming downstairs. I was 6 years old, 7 years old. Him and my dad slapping dominoes on the table. And I think I got into one game. So you're lucky we didn't get a chance to have a.
And I won most of the games, just for the record.
Yeah. But hey, Ty, you got any other questions for him?
Real quick, the whole kind of fiasco that's going on right now with the Jaguars coaching staff, right? And like running the coaching staff that way. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, that wasn't a good look. I mean, that's week one, bro. Where are you gonna go from there?
But like stuff on the inside, like how he's running practice, right? Like that stuff to me seems a little wild for the next level. Is that normal at all?
No.
Gotcha.
Nah. Coach Dungy's practices were hour and 45 minutes tops, a mile a minute, rep. We didn't condition. That's how much we ran during practice. Everything was high tempo. Let's go get our work in, get off. With Coach Pagano, they were a little bit longer. He taught a lot. It was a lot of install. So his practices were a little bit longer, but they weren't anything like that. Coach Moore's practices were very structured. He was strict. He set the table for Coach Dungy as far as being disciplined because he didn't play. His practices were really, really strict. So, but I haven't seen anything like. None of our coaches were there's not a bunch of yelling and screaming. There's not any of that. Coach Dungy never.
I can't imagine Dungy.
No.
I've never met the guy, but just my mom was a huge Dungy fan. So like anytime the Colts were playing, that game was on.
Yeah.
And so I just can't imagine. Like
he never. He just talked. He may get loud just so you can hear him, but that was the extent of the loudness. He was very calm, very collect, very, very. He was very much a disciplinarian. He's very smart. You know how Belichick gets all his credit for being a guru. He's just as smart. He is just as smart. He is brilliant with the X's and O's, and he was extremely disciplined too. His first team meeting, he told people, I don't have a lot of rules because y'all are grown, right from wrong. And if you break them, you're not going to be here anyway.
Facts.
That's how he was. He is everything he purports himself to be. That's how he is. That's him. It's not fake. It's not phony. I never saw anything other than how he portrays himself. That's how he was every day that I saw him.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know my mom, she loved Tony Dungy, but yeah, I just can't imagine that going over well in a locker room full of grown men that are getting paid, and you're sitting out there yelling at them.
Some of them make more than you. So it's not gonna. At this level, even lower levels, you can't talk to these kids like the way I know my generation, especially. You can't talk to these kids like that. They're different. They're not soft. They're not any of that, but you just can't talk to them that way. It doesn't work. You'll lose them. You won't get anything out of them. So, and they just won't respect you. That's not how you have to come at these kids. You gotta pour stuff into them first. And not that any of those, they're not kids, they're grown men, but even still, you got to pour into them, and they got to know you care about them first before you can get to any of this yelling and screaming and all of that. So any young coach listening, invest time in your players, get to know them, let them know you care about them. Teach them. That's basically, there's another Coach Dungy. He was like, my parents were teachers. I believe in teaching. A lot of these coaches don't want to teach; they want to yell. I'll never forget my first year being down in the Southwest. I was at Texas State. It was Southwest Texas back then. A kid, I was going to watch a receiver, and the coach saw me come over there with my Colts stuff on. The kid caught a ball the wrong way, and he literally undressed this kid, like cussed him out, called him out. He was dumb. You're stupid. We get it. Blah blah blah. You stupid. Blah, blah. I like walked away because I was like he was showing off for me, and I saw him later, and he was like, "What did you think?" Like, Coach, did you see the kid's reaction when you cussed him out? Like, he dropped his head. He was embarrassed, and then all of that yelling. You never corrected what the issue was. Tell him his hands were wrong. Teach.
Could be that simple.
Teach. That's what it's all about. Coaching is teaching. Teach these kids.
Yeah. You know, I had that similar type of conversation with my volleyball coach today. Not that she's doing anything wrong, but you know, we've been through a tough season. There's been a lot of parent issues, a couple coaching issues at the beginning that I've annoyingly had to deal with. But you know, you push through it. But anyways, you know, it's her first year. She's filling the shoes of a 6-year head coach, and so that's tough, especially when literally the girls pretty much from top to bottom are expecting one thing. And I told her, you know, the best coaches are not prideful, right? The best coaches are willing to learn. They're willing to be humble, but also they're willing to be vulnerable with their players, right? I mean, you can't be this hard shell of a person that you can't be relatable, because when that happens, like you said, especially with this generation, you lose them. You know, even me, I'm only really 5-6 years older than a lot of some of these kids that I'm ADing over. Well, okay, 5-6 years, 9 years. I don't know what's wrong with my. Yeah, I'm 25. Most of these kids are 15, 16, 17. But even then, there's a stark difference between how I grew up and how they grew up. And so just being able to find the balance of, you know, creating that relationship with them, being vulnerable with what you've been through, with your struggles, and then ultimately being able to affect change in that person's life through that, and so much so that you can call them out on stuff, and they know that you love them, they know you respect them, and so that's where it's coming from, rather than who is this person that thinks they challenge me, right? Now again, like, don't get me wrong, you know, my mama Byron, she instilled a little old school in me, so like, you know, if I need to throw it down, we could throw it down too, but
facts.
You know, at the same time, you gotta, it's relationship oriented. That's how the best coaches are.
Absolutely.
Even Nick Saban, I think, as much as obviously we know he's a stickler and yells, I think a lot of his players would probably say that they have good relationships with him, right? And so more than he doesn't care about him, more than he just yells at him, they know he cares, but he kicks them in the butt because he cares and wants the best for them. And that's why I think obviously he's the best college football coach of all time.
Yeah. And if you are going to yell, you better praise twice as hard as you yell.
Yep.
You know, you brought up Coach Saban. My favorite Coach Saban rant ever is the Musim Muhammad one.
Yeah.
Right, because I thought that it was so on point, where he was talking about how y'all wanted me to throw this kid off the team. He went on to have a successful NFL career. He has all these kids that are doing great. And by the way, his youngest daughter just graduated Princeton. So who was right? I love that Saban rant. It's one that I have like just kind of pinned in my YouTube videos. I have it saved because, you know, people have this idea of even the toughest coaches out there, Saban, and they see the yelling and stuff. But then they don't really understand that the back end, that there's the person there who's genuinely telling the media, I'm going to go to bat for my players. I might have this teaching moment, but at the end of the day, like, I'm going to go to war for my players. If y'all want me to kick this kid off the team, that's not for y'all to decide. I'm going to decide what's best. Because he made a great point. He's like, what do you want me to do? 19-year-old kid made a mistake. You want me to send him back where he came from, back home? Like, he's in college. This is the best place for him to be. He's getting an education. He's around peers of his age. Like, there's so much opportunity here. Why would I take away such a net positive, right? I completely agree. And that's what stuck out to me so much about the approach Urban and them are having. It's just, I don't see a possible world where it works.
And he's gonna drive himself crazy too.
Oh God.
It's week 1. It happens, you know.
You lose. It's not college football. You
No,
lose in the NFL. It's hard to win in the NFL.
those are grown men too.
Yeah.
They don't. It's totally different.
Yeah. Well, guys, again, like Ty said, sometimes we do things like this, and you just naturally flowing and talking. You may go over what you expected. I told these guys 30 to 45 minutes, and we're at an hour and 25. But I think it's been a great time. I've really enjoyed the conversation we've had. Again, I think that we flow well together, and I definitely like to do more of these things like this. If you guys are willing, for sure. I think it was great for my channel, for Ty's channel, and just to get Byron to have your knowledge on here as well, and to hear some of your stories is just invaluable. So thank you.
Anytime, sir.
Yeah,
I gotta get Ty set up though. I gotta step my game up.
We both gotta get mics, huh?
Yeah. I gotta get a mic, fancy lights, something.
Don't let all of this fool you. I have no idea what I'm doing. No, but it's just been an honor. I mean, thank you for inviting me on, Byron. It's been invaluable just getting to talk to you, right? Like, there's so much I don't know about football that I try and teach myself every day, and getting the opportunity to talk to somebody who made a career out of understanding the X's and O's and why, right? Because I came from the legal world, so that's always like the question I'm trying to ask is the why. That's why I love the schematics, the X's and O's, and even the psychology behind the game. And so anytime that I can learn, I mean, I'm just going to eat it up. I could continue talking for hours and hours, man, just trying to learn everything I can. So it's been a real honor just to be able to pick your brain.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, thank both of y'all again. And guys, again, we're gonna have both of these guys on the show here pretty soon, whether by themselves or together at some point. They'll both be back on the show. So again, guys, thanks for taking the time. I know it's late. Gotta get to bed. I got a big old cross country meet tomorrow. I hope we make some good money off of. So y'all wish me luck. Pray for me on that end. But Ty, Byron, appreciate you. Love you, Byron.
Love you too, bro.
Soon. All right.